Troy, it's been a minute since you've been on the pod.
Yeah.
Like, we were trying to figure it out. So this is year 8 of the ELKSHAPE pod, and I feel like you came on year 1 or 2.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I was still in my 40s, late 40s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And had you ever been on a pod before?
Not many.
Yeah.
You were the first legitimate podcast. And what I mean by legit is like you were rolling pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely top podcast out west when you got a hold of me. But I hadn't been on many.
Yeah.
But it's been a lot different since then. Been a lot.
Well, thanks for coming over today, man.
Yeah.
I'm more or less selfishly excited to just catch up. Like, that's the beauty of podcasting is like, how often do two bros get to sit down in the same room with all that's going on, catch up, and talk about real life? So,
well, when you talked to me that first time, I always feel like I'm a pretty good judge of like who a person is. And when I walked away from that first podcast we did, I said to myself, I said, Dan Staton's a good dude.
Oh, man.
And it's very important to me in my life to be around really good people. And anytime you have a platform like you do, the scrutiny that somebody like you might get, I'm going to tell the world right now, if you're complaining about a guy like you in any way, you don't have your facts right. So I was always impressed by that first time we talked, mostly about who you are as a human. Of course, I love what you do and love your passion for what you do. So because of that podcast we did together that first time, I've always kept close track of just, from afar.
Yeah.
Try not to bother you. You're so busy. Love your stuff. Ty, my son, who's over at Montana State, my other son, Jess, from that day forward, I know Ty especially because he's into the hunting hardcore. I go to his house, we turn on his YouTube channel, and there's a bunch of ELKSHAPE stuff. So anyway, my point is you don't have to hang around or be with a person all the time to know that they're a quality human being, and you just like when you do have the chance to be around them.
Man, you didn't have to say that, but I really appreciate that. I got a lot of respect for what you do. And for those that don't know who Troy is, we're going to get into Troy, and I'm going to give Troy all the opportunity to share whatever he wants to, but to get the ball rolling, I'm going to dive right in on this one, okay?
Let's roll.
Put yourself in my shoes, okay? Been bow hunting only since 2001, but I did pick up a hunter safety card at age 10. That would be 1991. So I'm 43. How old are you?
I'm 55.
Years young. And so I don't feel like a huge age gap there. And I'm an old soul. So age 10, got my hunter safety card. Dad hands me a 30-30, takes me out whitetail hunting. That's what I lived off whitetail. So I remember complaining to my parents about, man, dinner is always venison. Can we please have beef? Like, what little 6-year-old says that? But I remember saying that because I was tired of deer meat, man. But looking back, my parents always sacrificed so much for us. So age 12, I go to a deer camp by Deer Lake, Washington. I know you're familiar. No, Diamond Lake.
Diamond Lake.
You know that country.
Oh, yeah.
Hunted some public land near, I probably won't say because I don't want to ruin people's spots, but this is a long time ago. And my dad's got a hunting camp with a bunch of peers. They're all probably in their 30s or 40s, and I'm the only young buck. And this is the first time my dad sets me loose by myself. And he sets me up on a scrape. There's a foot of snow. It's Rifle, Washington. And I ended up shooting like a pretty darn palmated buck with a 308 at about 40 yards. I think I spined him, and then I had to shoot him again. My dad hears the shots, comes running. I'm back at camp with all these grown-ass men, and I can't even tell you, if I could bottle up, I felt like I became a man that day, and they were so many attaboys.
Yeah.
And Troy, I was hooked on whitetail hunting with my dad. Like, I was like, this is such a sweet father-son time.
Yeah.
And kudos to my dad for doing it right. Then sports happens, right? Like wrestling, baseball, football. I don't hunt until I graduate high school. And then I found elk hunting, and the rest is history. But right. I wanted to just give like a kind of a basis platform. Like, my first love was whitetails.
Yep.
And so having you here today, I want to put you in my shoes. I've grown up hunting Washington, whitetail, all my life. I have hunted whitetail in other states for sure, but now I'm an Idaho resident, and I don't know at North Idaho. I have killed one buck in North Idaho at Farragut State Park before there was 17 tree stands per square mile.
Right.
So many,
Right.
many years,
Right.
15 years ago. So I don't have a lot of reps. Put yourself in my shoes. You are Troy Pottinger. You are the king of prospecting. How do I start my new journey in North Idaho hunting public land, mountain bucks, which is a whole nother, that's the point of this pod today. That's your specialty.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a mountain buck. I don't know how to say it. I think I kind of pioneered some of this stuff. I had to figure it out on my own. I'm a Northern Idaho native. 55 years old, killed my first buck like you did by myself behind my ranch in Santa, Idaho.
I know where that is.
Yeah. And my dad was, he's very, he gave me a lot of responsibility as a young man. And this will all come together to answer your question. But he said to me when I was young, my dad was a Salmon River guy, Riggins, Idaho guy that was a logger. And in the 80s, we moved to North Idaho because of the boom. My dad was killing it, logging, and he was a phenomenal logger, just an animal. And when we moved up to the Santa area, right around 1980, we went from mule deer, big bulls, Salmon River, Hell's Canyon, big bulls. You know elk better than I do. But my dad hunted all of that his whole life. But when we moved to the St. Mary's area, because of the logging industry, and I got thrown into whitetails. And I was like 10 years old, and I wasn't quite old enough to hunt yet. But we had 50 acres. We had cattle. We ranched. My dad logged. My mom was a teacher. I had one brother, Rob Pottinger, just me and my brother. And we just had whitetails everywhere. So go out like you, kill my first buck. Man, I was chomping in the bit for 2 years after seeing bucks on our property that to me were giants. They're probably 125, 130 class bucks. Anyway, did just what you did. Went out, did it all on my own. My dad turned me loose, killed a buck all by myself at 12 years old in Idaho, back in the day when you had to be 12. And then
What'd you shoot him with?
270.
Yeah.
Shot a little buck, hitting a scrape, walking through a scrape, didn't see me, snuck up behind him and got him. Literally had my Irish setter with me because I was by myself and I was 12 years old and I was a mile from the house.
Wow.
By myself.
That's legit.
My dad turned me loose, and I kind of missed this part, but my dad always told me, he said, son, he goes, all these muleys I've killed, all these bulls I've killed. He said, I promise you. My dad was a bow hunter and a rifle hunter both. I actually have his old original Allen compound bows. So if you know bows, my dad was the first of the first.
OG.
Original Allen compound hanging on my wall to this day that he killed bulls with. Anyway, I'm jumping around a little.
No, you're not.
Let me get to
I'm
this.
tracking.
Yeah, please track. And I'm sorry, but this is cool. He said to me, and I never forget it. He said, son, all the stuff I've killed, 180, 190 inch muleys, 160, 70s. He goes, I promise you this. If you can figure those old whitetail bucks out. Now, he's telling me this before my first season. He said, if you can figure out an old whitetail buck, you can kill anything.
Oh, that's gospel.
And for me, it resonated with me because when I went out and killed my own buck, and he said, on your own.
Yeah.
He turned me loose. He trusted me. We had a lot of responsibility growing up. I was branding cows and cutting up beef and cutting up elk. And I was hunting the Frank Church with my granddad and my dad back when I was 8 years old. We killed 5 bulls in 3 days, stuff like that in the old days. That was phenomenal before it all got popular. Pack strings, 20 miles. I grew up on a horse.
Okay.
My grandfather had a pack string. I mean, that's just the life we lived in the Salmon River till I moved to St. Mary's. So anyway, Dan, to get back to your point, I was the same. I was so hooked when I killed that deer by myself, that 12-year-old age that day. Had my Irish setter with me just because, that dark timber when you're 12 years old.
Oh, yeah.
Can you believe I killed a deer with my freaking Irish setter with me? Anyway, for you, for me, from that point forward, here's what I did. I fell in love with the thought and the idea of figuring out how to kill an older buck. And I was only 12, but I've always been a thinker. I thought, this is awesome, but this is a little guy. And I had seen some beautiful bucks on my property. And I thought, how do I figure out, because of what my dad told me, if you can figure these old guys out, Troy, you can kill anything. So I'd always had that in my head. And I just started diving in at 12 years old. Believe it or not, 12 years old, 13 years old, I'm reading books on whitetail biology. I'm head over heels over these things because of the feeling I got when I killed that first deer. I mean, I was a football player in high school and college. I scored a lot of touchdowns. I did a lot of sports stuff. I feel like anything I got into, I worked really hard at and excelled at. Mindset, some intelligence added in there. You got to do things smart too. Well, I applied all of this to my whitetail study, and I just got my ass whooped year in and year out. So Dan, for you getting into Idaho, you already have this unbelievable hunting knowledge that a lot of guys your age don't have. It's because you've spent more time, in my opinion, in the woods, even just hunting elk. I know that's your predominant time spent, but there is no substitute for experience, being in the mountains, being in the woods. And you want to go hunt mountain whitetails. Yep. And you're in Idaho now. You're not going to get a bait. And I have nothing against the guys that can bait in Washington or places I hunt, like or Ohio or Oklahoma, where they do. I have nothing against it. I do not care. Yep. I play the game wherever I go, and I play off of that game to even be better. But all that to say, Idaho taught me how to hunt whitetails. I would like that. If I was gone tomorrow, I want people to know that. It's because of the mountains of Idaho. No feed, no bait, nothing but scrapes. I had to dive into the biology of what makes a whitetail buck tick, and especially older bucks. So I started studying, started getting my butt kicked. I killed a buck every year of my life, up until way later when I got really picky. I've had 1 year where I didn't kill a deer in my life, and it was because I said no to what I could have killed.
Yeah.
But that's way down the road.
Yeah.
But all through those teenage years, I killed a whitetail buck by myself, and I just kept climbing the ladder and learning and studying. When I was a sophomore in high school, I put a complete whitetail deer together, every bone. That's how wrapped up in my zoology class.
That's insane.
That's how freaking nuts I was about whitetails. Like, I was annoying, I think, to some people about whitetails. Loved my friends, family, loved playing football, basketball, baseball, did it all. But whitetails have my heart. Whitetails always have given me more than anything outside of the love for my wife and my kids and God.
Yeah.
God first, family, but whitetails, man, they just give me this love. So anyway, Dan, the point is you're diving into a state where you have to hunt whitetails that you're going to want to kill, the caliber that you're interested in. You are going to have to put a ton of time in my opinion. You're going to have to learn individual deer through scouting. I don't know if you have that time being the elk hunter you are. My successes, a lot of it comes from the immense amount of time I've put in the past to where now it's easier and I don't make as many mistakes and I'm way more efficient. We could get to that later. But you're going to have to go out and prospect, and you're going to have to find the kind of deer you want to hunt, and you don't get to throw feed at it. Now, there's guys that cheat and guys that do it. I know guys that do it. And they're not getting caught. But if you want to go do it pure, based on the Idaho laws, those whitetail bucks, those old ones, will teach you more about a whitetail than anything you'll ever read in a book or even hear from me. But you got to go put some time into them. And the one common denominator in the mountains, everywhere I hunt them, whether you can feed in the state or not. So last year I hunted Alberta, Washington, Idaho, and I prospected in Montana, but did not draw.
Okay.
So my whole point is everywhere I go, it doesn't matter. The one common denominator is the biological social responses of deer to scrapes. I run scrapes year round. People used to think I was crazy when I would talk. They're like, who is this guy? Well, now everybody's doing it.
Yeah.
Licking branches are year round. Are social hubs. You tie in all the terrain, all the habitat, all the security cover, all the pressure, all the predator pressure, everything into it all. You look at the big picture of it all, and you find where an old whitetail buck can survive. A lot of times when they get older than that 4.5-year-old age, they're a hermit. They live by themselves. They're like an old man. They don't want to be around a lot of people. They've got this shit figured out, and they will exist and survive amongst the apex predators in places that the wind and the thermals protect them daily. Because you and I both know North Idaho.
Yeah.
Thick as can be, can't see 50 yards past your face. So it's not like a North Dakota whitetail that can see a mile.
Yep.
They're living by their nose, their eyes and their ears. I'd say their ears are number 2. Their eyes are 3.
Yeah.
What they survive on. And anybody that lives in this country and hunts it, whether you're an elk hunter, mule deer hunter, whitetail hunter, doesn't matter. You all know if you've hunted northern Idaho's habitat and terrain, it's as unforgiving as any place I've ever hunted. I just hunted Alberta, and it's beautiful up there, but it was not as unforgiving as North Idaho. Not even close. I loved it. It was flatter.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I've lived in the mountains my whole life. So what you have to do to be successful is you got to put some time in. You've got to start to understand the big picture of how a true mature mountain buck runs his network, and how he uses his changing food sources about every 2 to 3 weeks year round.
No kidding.
Yeah, snow levels, maybe a month at the most. Snow
Dude,
levels.
I'm not overlooking that. That is incredibly interesting to me.
He has to avoid all the apex predators in his drainages.
Mm-hmm.
He will have multiple bedding zones. It could be 5 miles apart different times of the year, 10 miles apart if they have to migrate with snow. You don't learn this stuff unless you've lived it, and I've lived it since I was 13 or 12.
This is like the ultimate quarry.
I have, if there's one thing I can say I've done, guys, is I put the time in.
Mm-hmm.
I have sacrificed everything after college other than my being married to my wife. And I didn't get married till I was 30.
Nice.
So from age 22 to 30, when everybody was playing softball, when everybody was on the river in a boat, when everybody was out beaching it, when everybody was out partying and drinking, I was by myself for almost a decade, over 250 to 300 partial days at least in the woods, figuring out whitetails in the prime of my life, right out of college football. You know, just could do anything, still do a lot, especially at my age. I feel like I do really well. But the whole point is I sacrificed a lot to learn it, to learn what I had to go key in on to even put myself in the game. So for you, Dan, you're going to have to get out. You're going to have to let the country teach you, the whitetails that live in it teach you where they want to live. And those big bucks are always going to base it on where they have the best security, wind advantage their entire life. They're going to have food sources that they rotate around to, but they will always position themselves in bedding zones, not one bed, or they're mountain lion or wolf shit. If they do that, they're done.
Yep.
They don't get old.
Yep.
They're constantly getting bumped and moved. So I find these zones where these monarch type bucks live, you know, the top of the food chain in Idaho, Washington, northeast or northwest Montana. It's all the same kind of habitat. And I always start with the wind. And I let the wind show me where a buck should be living. And then every second is always security cover and food and water year round for him. And all the slopes dictate where they transition to every 2 or 3 weeks. All the food sources that start to freshen up, ripe, boom, they're gone at 2 or 3 weeks later, then they transition. And then as it gets hotter in hell and the water sources start drying up, it's just like your elk stuff. You got to key in on, okay, now that buck's moved a mile or two to be on this water source and be in a north at the opening of the season.
Yep.
So I always have to get in their hip pocket.
Yep.
And that doesn't come from looking at a map and e-scouting. I'm sorry. That's a start.
Sure.
E-scouting's a great start. But I learn these deer, and then I even take it to another level. I play the long game on every buck I kill. I have not killed a buck. I thought I killed one, but I have not killed a buck in 20 years that I didn't know in the mountains.
That is
20 years.
Outstanding.
Every buck I kill, Dan, I usually have a storied history with him because I play the long game with my scrapes and he grows up on them. And then I see him move around and transition maybe into a different drainage
Sure.
as he gets older.
Yeah, he
but
gets his own
but I'm
territory.
still working on him.
Yep.
But those scrapes are my key. It's the only common denominator if you're truly hunting Idaho with a bow for whitetails that's going to work for you. Now, guys will say, well, that's not true, Troy. I hunt alfalfa fields. Well, that's great till the alfalfa's cut. But what if that buck, you don't kill him in the alfalfa and he gets to the mountains and in October, November, he's breeding does 6 miles away? Because that happens. I know, because I've killed bucks that eat out alfalfa 5 or 6 miles away in the mountains 2 months later because I can't hunt the alfalfa because it's private. And everything I do, Dan, for the listeners, all public. I have a couple private pieces only, but I'm 90. When I say all, I'm 98 to 99% all public land my entire life.
Insane.
So just to give, as far as if you look at the acreage, I'm probably 99.8 or 99.9 if we did it on a scale of acres.
Yeah.
That I have access to.
Yeah.
So yeah, then I haven't even talked about it. But then you got to throw in all the human pressure, which I know you deal with elk.
Oh, certainly.
So I know that was a lot.
No, that's great.
But you have to go lay out country, and you got to learn from the deer.
So when I think about prospecting in Idaho, obviously, like my first step is to e-scout, and all I'm looking for is
A start.
I'm just trying to figure out some bottleneck stuff. Really, I'm just trying to what's the most low hanging fruit? Where's your average guy going to go start and whatever? And that doesn't mean you can't kill big bucks where there's pressure, because I know you do, but honestly, I definitely want to use a couple things that work in my advantage. Like for years, I would kill bucks back over there and in Washington, and this was before there was logging in there. Before there was so much recreation in there.
Right.
And I was the bastard who would literally hike in 50 pounds of corn, alfalfa, over and over, and I would literally hike. When I say hike in 3 miles for an all-day sit.
Right.
Takes you a long time. You got to leave really early in the morning. You know all about that.
Yes.
And you got to have a change of clothes because you can't not sweat.
Yeah.
And you got to try to do a hobo whitetail bath up there. And
That's how I killed my buck this year.
man, it was awesome. I loved those days of putting in the work. And so I like to find spots that either I can do it physically, or if it's legal to use an e-bike, I like those. Although I can tell you, I actually stopped working with Baku on a partnership level, a sponsorship level, because I just told them, guys, I can't give you content. I rarely can use your bikes legally. So I'm not going to be a good guy to sponsor.
Right.
But if you ever can find a place where it is legal, I love an e-bike. I still have my e-bike. Baku makes a great one. But so anywhere with an e-bike or some sort of physicality, that, I look on a map first. But I do think boots on the ground, literally trying to, you can't find a scrape on Google Earth or on X, bro.
That was my point. And I love my e-scouting.
Yeah.
That's my starting point.
Okay.
I drive hundreds and hundreds of miles with offline maps, and I drive slow, and I drive through country, and I cover, I think, as much ground as anybody. It's a very efficient way to do this. And I watch my e-map rolling the whole time as I'm driving, and I'll stop my truck because I'll see a bench,
A contour that you like.
contour that I like a mile away.
Mhm.
And then I'll look around it and I'll assess the surrounding area, and I'll see a hidden ridge that nobody else is going to pay attention to unless they're doing this. And I'm doing it driving real slow through the woods, and I'll do it for I'll do it all day long.
Love it.
I'll cover I'll cover hundreds of miles just scouting this way. But when I find that habitat, security cover, elevation that I like, contours that I like, just screams to me a big whitetail buck could live there because the slope, the terrain, and the prevailing winds and the thermals would keep him alive, then I dive in. Get out of my truck, dive in. I might spend, and I never limit myself. I go in and I don't come out of there, even if it's still dark, until I find what I needed to find, or go down and say, nope, not what I'm looking for. And I do that over and over and over and over again in multiple states and another country. It's worked really well for me. So the e-scouting, very important to get started, but then I got to get the boots on the ground, and I got to get in there and see the real shit, the stuff that I know is going to hold a hermit old mountain whitetail buck that's a stud, and it works over and over, Dan. Now, I didn't know that when I was young. I had to learn that. Shed hunting taught me a ton in my 20s and early 30s because mountain whitetails drop their antlers. The oldest, biggest bucks tend to, they're so wore out, their testosterone levels drop. They drop early. So if you're privy, if you can look at a shed and tell, I can look at a shed anytime I pick one up and usually tell if it's been there a month, 2 weeks, 1 day.
Dude,
we all can do that, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Hey,
anybody
Riley,
that spent some time.
you grab that big shed over there that's hanging up. I'll show you the shed. Like
Yeah.
I was hunting this buck, Troy, in Idaho, back behind my cabin,
Yep.
which my cabin used to be, as the crow flies, just a few miles from Santa.
Right.
Which is kind of cool to come full circle with you. But
Right.
yeah, hand that to Troy. So
I probably know that. Yeah, I know
this
that
dude was
genetic.
alive.
I have this genetic at my house.
Oh, you do?
I do.
This
Yeah.
dude was alive, and I hunted him that morning. I saw him,
Yeah.
and I remember I went back to
Beautiful.
the cabin to grab my wife. At the time, we didn't have kids, and I was like, Alicia, and I'm hunting him on the ground with a bow because I just didn't know better. And I'm like, Alicia, I got this buck picked out. Let's go kill him. We hike back up there, and in my tracks, that's laying in my footprints.
Right.
December 10th.
Right. So
The dude dropped December 10th.
So that's a good point I'm getting at. In my 20s, the whole decade, into my early 30s, the bucks I started killing, as long as I picked their sheds up knowing it was still December or early January, guess where I'd circle back and kill them the next year?
Yep.
Dead giveaway.
Dead
Now,
giveaway.
if you get a ton of snow early, you get 18 inches or more snow in Idaho, the mountain bucks move. 18 inches is what I have seen on an unofficial, which I think I probably studied as much as anybody, and 20 years of trail camera evidence
Yep.
on video to prove it. They leave. About 18 to 20 inches, they're gone. So timing, how deep was the snow when he dropped that in December?
It was like maybe 2 feet at the most.
He was
It
he was going to move.
Yeah.
So what he showed you there is his flat out where he likes to exist in December and hide out. Now, bucks that are living somewhere in Idaho in December, whitetail bucks, it is their best hideout because they survived the rifle season.
Yeah.
And they are trying to recover. They're trying to recover, maybe pick up a last doe, but the truth is they're trying to put 30 pounds back on, or at least get through. They're really not putting the weight on. They're trying to maintain enough to make the winter. And then when that snow gets so deep, then they're gone. They'll migrate downstream. It's simple. They always go downstream. They head to lower elevations. They know where to migrate to. But to get back to that, I started doing this in the late 80s. And I started circling back on big mountain bucks and started killing big ones. And in 2003, I found a shed in April. And even though it was April, I could look at it and tell it had been on the ground since December or January. I could tell by looking at the discoloration, how much water was soaked into it. I knew the snow levels, where I found this shed. I knew what they were back in December and January. So I deducted from all of that based on what I knew. I was like, this son of a bitch was living here in December and probably November and October. And when I assessed the area and looked around at all it, he had all the food he ever needed. He had all the security cover he ever needed. He had the perfect slope to catch the majority of our prevailing winds and thermals to never get killed. And he had an area that he was bedding in that I believed. I literally broke all this down in my head when I stood there with that shed in my hand. So then I spent the next couple weeks breaking the whole area down, and then I killed him the next year. And when I killed that deer, I killed him the first time I hunted him.
Oh.
But I did all the work in the summer. I found him in the summer. It all paid off because of a shed antler. And people will say, well, that doesn't work. Yeah, it does.
No.
If they shed for you early enough, like old bucks do.
Yeah, that's the ones we're after anyways, right?
That's his hideout.
Yep.
That's his favorite place to survive the month and a half long rifle season of Idaho, which you're going to have to deal with.
Yeah.
You're dealing with bucks, Dan, that don't get hunted, because I hunt Washington too.
Yep.
Our bucks in Washington, our big whitetails, get hunted for a couple weeks with a rifle.
And that's it.
That's it.
Yep.
That's it. When you take on an old mountain buck in Idaho that's been
I didn't even think of that, man.
when he's been gunned at for 7 weeks.
And Idaho bros get after it, man.
Oh, they freaking hunt their asses off.
Yeah.
You're talking about dudes that are just, they're going to get out. There's guys that walk these bucks down in the snow.
Yes, sir.
Which, if our bucks in Idaho can survive that, they're phenomenal. They're survival machines. They don't let a mountain lion walk them down. They don't let a guy with a rifle walk them down. They go to places. This is what I'm trying to get across. they go to places that keep them alive.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I hunt big bucks. If you ever see, I always tell people, you want to know where I'm at? Look at the timber species I'm killing my bucks in. It ain't in the pines, boys. And you can kill big bucks in the pines.
Sure.
But I usually end up killing a whitetail buck in Idaho, Washington, Montana, anywhere I go. It's usually at an elevation where he's a hermit. He's figured out a way to stay alive with all of the obstacles he has to face in Idaho. And they are the smartest animal I've ever been around in my life.
Hey guys, interrupting the pod to let you know about our awesome partner, Stealth Cam. Been running them forever. They're the most durable. My favorite trail cam of all time is still the DS4K. It is a non-cellular, and I like to leave that baby soaking in that backcountry where you don't even get cell service. Put at least a 128 gigabyte card, throw some AA lithiums, or use their rechargeable battery. And check out this little guy right here. The Soul Pack will help extend the battery life so you can let trail cameras soak year round, which is really convenient for your gas mileage. And then it's also like Christmas when you finally get to go check that camera. Leave it over a pinch point, some sort of saddle or wallow. Check out the Fusion Max. They have a whole line. They have a great app that works well with the cellular, where legal. Totally awesome. We have discount codes with Stealth Cam, which not only helps support them, but us here at the pod. Discount code ELKSHAPE20 will save 20% on non-cellular trail cams, and ELKSHAPE10 will take 10% off cellular trail cams from Stealth Cam, which is awesome. Trail Camology is just a tool. It is just a way for you to learn about the area, the predators, the animal behavior, the biology, and hunting pressure. It's just a tool, but it's a very helpful one that might help you have more success. Hey, we're interrupting the pod today to let you know about our awesome partner, Vortex Optics. We've been working with them directly since 2010. This company is veteran owned and they're out of Wisconsin. We've been to their HQ multiple times. Amazing people, amazing products, and they have the VIP warranty. No questions asked. You break it, they'll fix it. Something you can stand behind. And that VIP warranty follows the product. When it comes to going out west, a lot of times I'm running the Razor UHD 12s by 50s or the 10 by 42s. And for you whitetail hunters, they even have a smaller guy, which is great for the whitetail. Check out the Razor 10 by 32. This is what I take for my whitetail hunts. For my rifle, I have my Fury HDs. This is where all my ballistic information is input with my 6.5 PRC. I can click, tell where to dial. It's awesome. And then in the backcountry, I'm always running some sort of spotting scope, whether it be angled 65 Razor, or you can check out the mini Razor, which is probably my all-time favorite. It's a 56 millimeter. You can see that I have this. It's very packable. It's light. Throw it on a light tripod and you're good to go. Head over to Vortex Optics. Check out some of their products. And if you're going to wear Vortex wear, their hats, their swag, their tees, even their sunglasses, enter the discount code ELKSHAPE. It'll take 20% off. Back to the pod. Today's podcast is brought to you by Wilderness Athlete. They've been a partner of mine since 2006. These guys are a supplement company, not a marketing company. They're out of Arizona. And these are the supplements that I take not only in the field, but year round. During the off season, you won't catch me without creatine, HMB. And in the field, I'm always taking Hydrate and Recover. They have multivitamins, fish oil, joint support, meal replacements, post-workout protein. Head over to wildernessathlete.com, throw some stuff in your cart, enter the discount code ELKSHAPE. It'll take 20% off. Again, this is a great brand. They're not a marketing company. They are a supplement company made for hunters by hunters. Back to the pod. Well, I imagine we'll probably talk about your scrape program, but I think this segues in beautifully to, all right, Troy Pottinger, you done prospected. You know every deer that you've killed in the last 20 years. How do you know when to go kill them? Like that's a science. I know you're surgical. I even remember our last podcast 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
This MFer slept in his truck on the side of a mountain just to wait for the wind to get right.
Yep.
So how do you execute that?
Well, first of all, I do whatever it takes and I never cut a corner.
Yeah.
So if you're not willing to do whatever it takes, and if you puss out on things, you're not going to get it done.
Okay.
I don't mean that in a rude way.
I don't think that's
rude.
just
who I am. I grew up in a logging community. We were raised, when you go saw logs for your dad all through high school, you do what it takes to get through the day, and you never complain.
No.
And you never embarrass him, and you never embarrass your family name. So it's a mentality. So you're going to do whatever it takes.
Okay.
So that kind of stuff to me is fun.
I'm into that. I love type 2 fun or type B fun.
Just whatever people want to call it. I come from that I come from that, you know, my dad was just always, there was no excuses for anything ever.
Mm-hmm.
You're weak if you make excuses. That's the way I was raised. And I love that because my dad never, ever made excuses. So getting back into this, diving in, let's talk about that buck I found that shed to.
Yeah.
There you go. What did it take to surgically remove him and kill him? Well, I put all the time in to find him in the summer. I used glass. I actually was on a mountain clear cut. He was in an old cut that had been there a while. And
Like how old of a cut?
This one is one nowadays with long range. I wouldn't even target, but back before all the long range rifles came out, the big bucks weren't getting shot out of them as much. So now I hunt a totally different. I've evolved.
Damn.
I've evolved, buddy, because if you hunt big whitetails where everybody's long ranging them, they're getting picked off left and right. So anyway, but back to this deer. This cut was probably 10, 15 years old. I like them like 30 and 40 years old.
So
now.
did they replant it?
Yeah, it was all replanted, beautifully replanted.
Yeah, tamarack mainly.
Yeah, and it was high enough. There was Tammy's, there was Doug fir.
Gotcha.
He was using a mountain and living at the very top eighth of the mountain for wind. The slope he laid on, and when I say laid, the area he went back into to stay alive made sense. He had prevailing winds 85% of the year. He could slip over from the south to the north side, run the ridge east and west, go wherever he needed to get to what he needed. But anyway, when I killed this deer, found that shed, broke it all down, spent the whole spring looking for the other side. This is a 84-inch shed.
Oh my, yeah.
84-inch side, big 9-point.
So this is typically a Boone and Crockett.
Yeah, and when I killed him, I'll get to that in a sec, but this is what really solidified it all for me when I was early 30s. I was killing some nice deer in Idaho's gauging of what a nice deer is, but I wasn't killing what I really wanted to kill. Like I wanted to kill the best of the best, the oldest, the most rare whitetail. I never looked at, it was never about score to me. It was, I wanted the big brutes.
Fossils. You want to kill the fossil bucks.
I wanted to kill the ones that were just monsters and old, but wise. And they get to me. Mm-hmm. They're different. They are a different species of a whitetail when they get to that age in the mountains and can survive it. So back to this buck, I did all the work all summer. Oh, I was glassing him and filming him in the velvet from a mile away. I would log all day. I'd start at daylight so I could go glass that sucker in the summer at 9 o'clock at night. You know, it was getting dark at 9. He'd barely in the summer.
I love that time of year.
In the summer, he'd barely step out and feed in the top corner of that cut. And I had walked all of it like 20-yard grids for 2 miles on both sides of the mountain trying to find the other side of the shed. So guess what that did for me, Dan? I knew everything about that dude's home. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure I bumped him.
Obviously you did.
Sure
I have to ask this then.
And that was back in April and May.
So, Troy, when you did your grid, you did your homework, how many, I mean, seriously, educate us. How many scrapes did you find up there? How many rubs did you find that you knew that were his? Like, what were the signs?
I uncovered stuff on that area that yielded me dividends on 5 other tremendous whitetails since then.
No kidding.
Like studs, some of my best, over a 20-year period. Because I play the long game on all the deer. I let them grow up. I wait till they're prime, and then I go in and kill them. But I found, just fair to your listeners, say 2 miles. The ridge runs east and west.
Interesting.
The slopes are south and north.
That's kind of rare.
And he would jump into the north to stay cool in the hot weather.
Yes, sir.
He had water on both sides. He had feed everywhere. He had security cover everywhere he wanted to go. He had to deal with lions and wolves.
Yep.
He had to deal with it all. So I know I bumped that deer. I wouldn't be surprised in April and May after I found the shed. I would not be surprised if I didn't see that deer on the hoof because I jumped a couple big-bodied, bald bucks.
Yep.
And I was like, that might be him.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, I ended up killing another deer the year after that in there. I killed both the giants in there in back-to-back years, which this is the importance of it all, Dan, to answer your question. I put all that work in. I uncovered other bucks that were unbelievable. I uncovered genetics. I really focus in on gene pools. And I found genetics in there that I loved. And I'm like, I'm going to live here for a while. And I have my other spots,
Sure.
and I'm always expanding out, but these genetics I loved. So I start watching him. I start picking him up on glass over a mile away. I never wanted to bother him once he started getting big in the summer. And I swear to God, this deer looked 200 on video.
Yep.
He was a freaking monster. But after the fact, after I kill him, I find out he was 8.5 years old the year I killed him. So he was
Incredible.
better. He was a little better the year I found the shed.
Yeah.
He was 8.5 when I killed him. He's still, and I had him officially scored, not bullshit score, not people telling you what he scores, officially scored after he dried by Boone and Crockett, one of the, Roger Sellner, one of the famous Boone and Crockett scorers out of Montana, scored him for me officially. So if I wanted to put him in the Idaho State records, I could. So I have the official paperwork on him.
Nice.
Anyway, all that to say, at 8.5 years old, he's still 100, almost 86-inch deer, 24 inches wide inside.
Oh,
23
okay.
23 and 7/8 inside on the official score sheet.
Yes, sir.
Just a giant.
What did he mass out at?
What do you mean mass out?
What was his mass score?
His gross score?
No, mass, just his
His
circumference.
his masses are right at 20 inches aside.
Okay.
But he's real wide and long,
Yeah.
really tall. But anyway, the whole point of this is when I went in to kill him, Dan, all the rubs and scrapes I found and all the sign I found. And here's the thing, rubs and scrapes are cool, but if you don't understand the network of trail systems that whitetails use to maneuver mountain ranges, then you're out of the game, because they run parallel all the time in the rut. Outside of the rut, they run vertical.
No shit.
Yes.
Okay.
It all
I
should,
want to slow
that
down
should,
for a second.
Okay, go ahead.
I got to digest what you just said. I
Yeah.
did not know that.
Yep.
And I've been doing this a long time.
And you play off of that and you'll kill them.
You're telling me when it comes rut time, they're going to run parallel to, obviously, because so they can smell a hot doe.
Yeah.
But for safety, security, and survival mode, which is, let's be honest, 10 months out of the year, they're going to go vertical.
They're gonna ascend and descend with the thermals.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
It's all wind driven.
It really makes sense.
It's all wind
Yeah,
driven.
okay.
And then once the rut starts, the bucks really start running their lateral and parallel trails of the ridges.
Yep.
And a lot of time, and it all is based on the thermal of the day. So in the middle of the night, you're going to get all your big bucks on camera down low.
Yep.
As soon as it gets warm, and even during the cold months that we hunt, is if you get any type of thermal uptick in a thermal during the rut, those big whitetails, Dan, they're going to be above the thermal running a high parallel trail,
Yep.
or at least moderately high.
Yeah.
Because then they pick up more doe scent from family groups below them. And then as soon as they hit the right doe scent, they descend during the rut and they get in on that doe.
Mm-hmm.
And then they also have a network of community scrapes that they have grown up on, that they've adhered to, that they've addressed for 4, 5, 6, 7 years. They know every old doe's photo period,
Yes.
and they show up when that doe's close. And they check those scrapes when that doe's close. So I do surgically remove a buck. Like this year, I went in and killed my big buck based on 3 years of history with him, letting him get old enough to kill him. But he showed me the 2 previous years exactly when he would show up on specific does at my community scrapes. And he started using lateral trails. I killed him on a lateral trail. I shot him at 10 yards this year on film.
How far were you from the scrape, the community scrape that you were hunting off of?
I had a 5-point and a 4-point in the community scrape when I killed my 7x6 this year.
Mm-hmm.
And he came down to one of my community scrape area where I killed him. I've been running for over a decade.
Golly.
So I'm in my stand. It's all on film. It'll all come out in my addictions episode next year, Whitetail Addictions. I have a 5x5 for the listeners that are in the East, a 10-pointer to them. And I had a 4x4 literally working my scrapes below my feet through my tree stand, hammering them right below me. And I'm filming him, and I look behind me, and there he is.
Holy crap.
And I'm a day and a half into the hunt to kill him. So I've spent a day and a half on him.
Yep.
Now I've scouted him 1,000 days over 3 years.
So you really shouldn't be that surprised to see him.
Well, he read the script. He has ran those scrapes since he was 4.5.
Yep.
Like he's been in there trying to be the man. There's an older buck in there, and this was the first year, and I run video year round, and he's a migrating buck. So he had all my bucks in this area migrate back up in April. So I start videoing them in April all the way through up my scrapes.
Yep.
And they hammer my licking branches. They lay in my scrapes in April and May. They live in them. They just want their scent there, because migrating deer really want to let all the other migrating deer know, hey, I'm alive, I'm still around, let's all get back together, type of thing.
Yeah.
And then the old bucks hermit off by themselves before the rut. They get prepared, they eat, they get big, they put some weight on, and then when it starts rolling in mid-October, they start running those lateral trails, parallel trails, they start checking those scrapes. But anyway, this big buck this year, Dan, that I killed, I only had to hunt him a day and a half into the season that I was hunting him, man, and I got him killed. He read the script. He came down. I had multiple does using the scrape. I had all these other younger bucks that I am conditioning to be there for me when they're mature and take one out at these scrapes. And I literally killed him with 2 bucks to my right, 15 yards away. He comes in, ears pinned back, walks right under my tree at 3 yards, walks in my footsteps in the snow. I was clean. We talked about having to change your clothes and be clean.
Yes,
I
sir.
did it all. I went in at 2:00 that morning.
No corners cut.
No corners cut. I stripped down to nothing, sprayed down, took a towel with me, was so clean when I got in the stand in the dark that morning that when he came in at 7:45, he had no idea. He literally on film walks through my footsteps.
Unreal.
He's standing 3 yards below my tree. I have to do a 180 around the tree to kill him. He walks 3 yards from me over to a scrape, starts pawing the ground on film. I draw. He's on the other side of the scrape tree. It's a little Doug fir. I draw, and I can see I got about 2 inches. I need him to move 2 inches forward. He steps forward, puts his feet together, pisses over his tarsals, and I smoke him. Mid tarsal
Getting
pee.
pissy, and he got shot.
He's standing with all of his feet together, peeing down his tarsals. You know, Fleming kind of just looking, and he had his ears pinned back at these other bucks at my big scrapes.
Yep.
What my community scrapes turn into is clusters.
Yep.
Like there's 10 scrapes there now. When I first started it, the deer had made them. I found them. I knew it was phenomenal. There was 4 big scrapes there. Now there's 10 or 12. There might be a dozen now.
Damn.
So I've just turned it into a war zone, meaning just this place where they all want to meet. But anyway, I shoot him, hit him really good. 80 yards, watch him pile up. He's dead. 10 seconds, done. But that was from all the work.
Yeah.
The work, the experience, the wisdom from all of the failures in the past, putting the time in. So when you dive into Idaho, you're gonna have to put some work in.
Yeah.
Because you're not gonna be able to maybe hunt the way you've hunted in Washington.
Yep.
That's my opinion. You're gonna have to put the work in. And when you find big Idaho whitetail bucks that have grown up on a scrape, that they know that they can catch a doe on every year at that photo period within those 2 or 3 days, and she's still alive, he'll be there.
Let's talk about doe densities on this particular area. Could you best guess how many actual does are in the area?
That where I killed that deer this year?
Yes, sir.
Or that old, and never did talk about that old Idaho one. I did kill that old Idaho one, by the way.
You did?
I killed him September 1. Remember I said I was glassing him and videoing him, and I had the shed and I was just all over him. Thought he was pushing 200 just because he looked so big with that frame and he had so much stuff. It opened August 30th.
That's right.
But I waited for the right wind on September 1. It was 90 degrees. This is no shit. I killed him right after he hit my licking branch and walked out in front of me on the very top of the mountain in a saddle. But I didn't get to it. I didn't do a good enough job. When I had scouted all that, Dan, and we talked about it, I found so many scrapes and so many rubs. I had found up in the saddle where I witnessed him all summer walking out of.
Yeah.
Long time standing community scrapes, 4 of them, just pounded for decades. So I knew that's where I needed to kill him. So I hung this stand in July, had it ready for him over those scrapes, killed him the very first night I hunted him. And he ended up on a Boone and Crockett true score sheet after drying, grossed 185 and change. You know, just a giant Idaho buck.
So 2 180 plus bucks out of a same general area.
Yeah, no, this buck that we're talking about now that I killed this year is a long ways away.
Oh, no. Yeah. So
Yeah.
this year's buck was in the 180s?
No, 70s.
yeah,
He was just under.
Yeah.
He was just under.
Yeah, I
He,
remember
no, he
seeing
was
him.
not 80s. He was just under 70. He was 68 and change.
Damn.
He was just a tank.
Mm-hmm. Palmated a little bit, if I remember.
Yeah, and wide.
Yeah.
He was 19 and a half inside, 7x6.
Mm.
I thought he was going to touch 70, but his brow tines killed him.
Yeah, short brows.
Yeah.
Did you get him aged-ish? Look at his teeth.
I haven't, but I've had him on my scrapes since he was 2.5.
Oh.
I believe he's 100% 5.5 this year.
Damn.
And then the 2 previous years before that, the last 3 bucks I've killed have been my targets, mountain bucks. I think I did the math the other day. It was 172 average. So some good bucks.
So obviously, listeners, Troy's a G. If you've never heard that first pod we did, I would recommend listening to that one. We go into great detail on a lot of this stuff. But I want to having you here, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about a couple of things. Like, would you be willing to touch on kind of that whitetail boot camp that you operate out here in Idaho, and if there's any opportunities for folks to come to? And then also, would you touch on the synthetic sense that you stand behind as well?
Yeah, I'll start with the synthetics. In the 90s, I was testing all the garbage on the market. And I'm a biology guy. I'm a kinesiology biology major in college. So in the 90s, I got out of college and was done playing ball, and all I wanted to do was whitetail hunt. I got a teaching job so that I could also log and do what I grew up doing with my dad in the summer. So I went and bought equipment and got a teaching job. Teach, log. Did that till I was 45. Every summer, log full time for private landowners. One man it, fall them, skid them, bucket, do it all.
What machines did you buy for that one-man job?
I just bought a nice little dozer.
You got a dozer?
Yeah, got a little dozer, nice chainsaws. And, back in the day, we fell everything by hand.
Yeah.
So I go do people's properties I've done jobs from 10 acres to 500.
No kidding.
Yeah.
One man.
One man by myself. And the only thing
How
I
long
did.
did it take you to fall those trees on a 500 piece?
Well, you're all of my jobs were always to improve somebody's habitat and enhance the aesthetics of the property.
Oh, yeah.
So I was always doing select
logging.
Beautiful select stuff. If somebody wants me to build them a food plot or whatever, put them a spot in where they can plant whatever they want on their land.
Hell yeah.
Just really cool stuff. I built a lot of ponds. And then I built a lot of roads.
Yeah. So you're a road builder.
Just what, anything related to log and road building and improving habitat of property. I've did a lot of farming too and planting. So just one man show, never wanted anybody working for me, wanted to do it by myself. My dad got killed when I was 17 logging.
He did.
Yeah. And I'd been logging with him. And one thing I wanted to do when my dad got killed was to, in my mind, so that I wouldn't fear or have because my dad loved logging. Like, he loved to log. He loved the timber industry. So when my dad got killed logging, I thought, I'm 17. I'm going to get through my senior year. Hopefully football will pay me a way through at least a small college, and it did. And that was, I didn't have any money. We didn't have nothing. My mom had to go back to college to get her teaching degree so she could teach. So my mom officially didn't start teaching. She worked as an aide until my dad died. So at 17, my brother and I were on our own. My mom went to the University of Idaho. Rob and I lived in St. Mary's. And again, my mom was golden. She was phenomenal. We said, Mom, we're 17 and 14. We can raise ourselves, meaning you don't have to be at home. We can make dinner. We can take care of ourselves. Dad's gone. You got to go back to school so that you can have a career. So Mom did. She went back to the University of Idaho. We lived in Santa. She drove down. Anybody can do the math. She drove to Santa, stayed with my aunt, went to school. My brother and I raised ourselves, drove to town, went to St. Mary's. Santa's a ways out, which we did. And then my mom ended up getting a little apartment for us in town so we didn't have to drive all the time. So we had the ranch, had the apartment. We're survivors. We lived off elk and deer meat, literally like you, like lived off of it.
Yeah.
Dad did a really nice job, had good insurance. My brother and I just said, Mom, you just take all of that. You hang on to all of that. And when you're ready, once you get done teaching, you go buy yourself a beautiful place, pay for it, be done. And that's what my mom did after she finished her teaching career. And then my mom, because she was able to do that, we didn't run through any of the money my dad left. Like, my dad had really good insurance for the day. He had to. He's a logger. He was smart. You know, he wanted his family to be, you know, we would have never thought my dad would have got killed, but he did. It happens.
Hey, how did he die? Like, what was it? Was a logging accident?
Yeah, he was, you know, I've never talked about this, like how he died.
Well, we don't have to.
No,
Mac,
it's
I don't want
good.
to.
No, it's good. I
Okay.
want this. I would like this out there just for my father, like for my dad. I'd like to say this. He ran at the time he was running a big skidder with a grapple,
I knew you were gonna say this.
with a grapple.
Yeah.
And he went to pull some chokers. He had a choker line system underneath the grapple. He had a winch line. So if you can't reach him with the grapple, you pull chokers to him.
Yep.
He went to pull chokers, I'll keep it very simple, to a drag. And the faller had set up a bunch of trees and knocked them all over in a pile,
Yep.
but he had missed one. One didn't fall. And it was set up. And if anybody knows what set up means, it was all it had was about an inch of pulling wood.
So Widowmaker.
Yeah, but I don't have any hard feelings.
Sure.
People make mistakes.
Yeah.
So my dad goes to hook the chokers to the trees that all piled up there in a nice pile, because good sawyers, that's what they do. Set 3 or 4 up, knock them over with one.
Yep.
They all fall in a beautiful pile.
Yep.
So my dad's down there hooking chokers, and the tree that was set up that wasn't noticed, that it didn't get knocked down, it was still standing, it blew over on my dad. And it had the perfect face cut, back cut in it. So guess where it's going?
Yeah.
So my dad's down there hooking chokers and gets whacked.
You can't get out of the way of that.
This is what I know. This is what I was told. The faller yelled at my dad, "Bruce," screamed at him. And all I heard was my dad couldn't move in time.
Yeah.
It whacked him and it killed him instantly. So at 17, my brother and my mother got a big dose of reality of like, what is it like to live life without the man that was everything to us? So
That's heavy, dog.
So Dan, to circle back, the reason I bought that equipment and got back into logging right after college was my father had such an unbelievable impact on my mindset, what I believe in, how I live my life, that I thought, I got 2 choices in life. I love logging, but my dad got killed logging. I can either fear it or embrace it and go do it. And I still love to log to this day. I love logging. I still love falling trees. So I went and bought a little dozer, and I ended up upgrading to a better dozer later in my 20s. And I taught. I got a teaching degree, so I followed my mom. I followed my father's footsteps and thought, with a teaching schedule, I can do really well in the summers logging. And I started out by logging for other people, even though I had a dozer. But once I upgraded to that better dozer after a few years in my 20s, then I just said, that's it. I want to be a one-man show. I want to do it my way. Plus, I did not want anybody to ever get hurt with me on a job because of seeing my dad get killed.
Yes, sir.
So I said, if I get killed out here doing this, it's my fault. Nobody else is going to kill me. And I don't mean that. I mean, what I'm saying is if I get killed out here logging, it's not going to be because somebody else made a mistake.
And they have to carry that the rest of their life.
They have to carry it the rest
What
of
a
their lives.
burden.
Right. I have no hard feelings at all.
No, man. Some things are just. Let's talk about
shit happens.
Let's talk about loggers for a second. So, like, having that cabin in St. Mary's for 15 years, hunting up there in the Coeur d'Alenes, up there north of Bonners and St. Joe, and all that good floodwood country. I mean, I love the Panhandle. I love loggers, dude. They're the hardest working sons of bitches, and even the logging trucks. Man, they're going to and from between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. Like hardest working people on planet Earth. And it's honest work.
And it's the most dangerous job on the planet.
Period.
It is. Look it up. I'm glad you brought it up because I never give my dad enough credit. He had me sawing for him since I was 13, full time in the summers, not babying me. I sawed every log he ever cut till he died. Until the year he got killed, which is interesting. I think this was a God thing. My football was really starting to take off before my senior year.
Yeah.
Like I was starting to blossom and really have a chance to go play college football. So guess what my dad told me the summer before he got killed?
Hit the weight room.
He said, you just go live in the weight room. Every time you log with me all summer, you lose 10 pounds, 20 pounds.
No doubt.
So I think it was a God thing.
Yeah, no doubt.
I didn't have to see him die. So I went to the weight room and then that happened with Dad. Yeah.
You didn't see him die, but can you think of I'm thinking of my son, Tristan, age 8. And so I would have 9 years left to make that kind of impact that your father did on you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I could do it, Troy. Your dad must have been something special.
Oh, you're good at this. Is going to be hard. Yeah. He was.
I appreciate you talking about it, man, because it inspires me to man, Dan, man up and be that father.
He was. Oh, sorry.
You're good.
He was a godly man. How many loggers do you know that never cuss?
None.
Hardest. Sorry. Sorry, Dad.
You're good.
He made me literally want to be the best human I could be the rest of my life. Because when he died and was gone, he was such a good human. And I'd never seen anybody work harder than him, ever. So smart, too. So slick with everything he did. Could do anything. My dad could do anything. Anything he decided he was going to do, never listened to the outside world. He just did it. Great rancher. Loved his cattle. Logger, one of the best loggers I think that probably ever walked the earth. Well, you can't gauge it, but I've had people tell me how phenomenal he was. The numbers he would put out would just, other people would be jealous.
Sure.
I was making $5,000 a month with my dad as a 13, 14, 15-year-old back in the 80s.
Yeah.
That's how many logs. And we were doing it all on what you produced. He is an animal. You know, back in the day when you're making $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 a year, logging's pretty good money in the 80s.
Yeah.
He was rolling. My dad was one semester away at Boise State from his teaching degree, biology. He went to logging because he could make way more money back in the day. It was a booming industry in the day, Dan.
He didn't have God. If you're that smart and
he's
capable,
super smart guy.
It's an obvious decision.
So freaking smart. But anyway, well, you know, when you lose your father like that, you look at life different the rest of your life. So the way I raised my boys has been based on what you just said. When you think about your children, if you're a dad or even a mom, moms, dads, both, if you, and there's people out there that have been through this too. I think they can relate to me. You look at life different. You approach life different. You put effort in that maybe most don't want to. And it's because you know that tomorrow you might not be here tomorrow. And I've always looked at life that way. Like I could easily be gone when I walk out this door.
Yeah.
So if I'm gone, I want to do what my father did for me, for my boys. I want them to know that everything I ever did was to set a good example the best I could. And that comes from our faith. We are a very strong faith. My family was we based everything around our faith in God. And my dad always did. And I think that's why he never feared anything. He never had fear. I think when he was gone, it really hurt so much. But the 17 years I had my dad were phenomenal. I'd be running the football down the field, St. Mary's, Idaho, and see my dad standing there in his logging clothes. Never miss a game. Dirty.
And you
sawdust.
know that wasn't easy for him to get off the mountain.
He was coming out of Prospector Creek.
Shut up.
Which you know where that is.
Yeah.
Sawing all day or skidding, whatever he was doing, and they would switch around in their roles. But my dad was really into running the skidder, but he sawed, he did it all. And I remember I'd always loved, I'd get tackled and slide out of bounds and I'd jump up. My dad's right there. And I love that he wasn't in everyday clothes.
Yeah.
He had his suspenders on, big leather pad here for a saw that he carried over his back. And he's, full beard, just looking at his boy. Never missed a game. Never missed anything for his kids. So yeah, that really impacted my mindset, Dan.
Yeah.
I give a ton of credit to everything that I've been successful at in my life to the way my dad impressed his life on me. The things that he modeled as a husband, as a father, as a Christian, as a godly man, I have not lived up to.
I know. And I'm not
as
a short amount of time.
I haven't been as good as him. I haven't. I know that I've made more mistakes than he ever did, and he wasn't perfect, but he was pretty darn just who he was, and he didn't waver, and he was so good to people. My dad was the guy that bought like a couple of the girls on the JV basketball team shoes because he watched them in a game and saw that their shoes weren't up to par. So he bought them shoes, never said a word, made sure they had them. Nobody knows that. I didn't know that till after he died. Somebody told me that. Just stuff like that.
Man.
So back to this whole hunting thing.
Oh yeah. Hunting.
Yeah, which is secondary to life.
Yeah.
My father had such an impact on me, and you brought up loggers. Those years that I sawed for my dad, I have never done anything remotely close as hard as those years. So I'm doing that at 13 through 16. At 17, he says, go hit the weight room and go try to play college football. Nothing was ever hard after that, Dan. College football is a piece of cake. Now, my son's playing big boy college football now, and I see what Ty goes through.
Had a hell of a season too.
Yes. Montana State, shout out to those guys. My son's a strong safety over there, and he's a hell of a lot better football player than I ever was. He's a lot bigger than me too. Anyway, but back to my father, those days sawing logs are the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. But I would not fail my father. I would literally work myself into the ground. When you're 13 and 14, you're not very big.
No.
And I was running a full-size 3 chainsaws to keep up with him on the deck.
So how big a bar is that for those that
30-inch bars?
30-inch bar. How much does that weigh?
The saw, the bar, the saw. I mean, you're holding. I don't even know. It's
not light.
I was
a
running
grown-ass man with forearms couldn't last.
Grown-ass men doing it. Yeah.
Most of you listening might not be able to saw all day.
Yeah, it's tough. And I would saw 10 to 12 hours a day for my dad.
What's the degree or the slope up there? And where we know those mountains, like
steep as could be.
Steep as possible.
Yeah, and where we would deck our logs. If you made one mistake when you're sawing the landing, I sawed the deck so the trucks could come load them out.
Yep.
I had to measure them all and saw them all before my dad got back with another drag.
Really?
I did it every day, all summer for 3 straight years. And I got good at it by my junior year. Like I was freaking rolling.
A machine.
Like I was kicking ass. Even my first year, it was like I thought I was going to die. Like there were times where I thought, I literally, when my dad, I would try I'd get pinched. You get pinched.
Yeah, dude.
And then my dad would roll in with this drag, my father on this big machine looking at me, and there's my saw stuck. So then I start running 2 saws and 3 saws so I'd never get pinched.
Yep.
Like I just immediately said, Dad, I got to have 2 or 3 saws. Yep, you do. But he let me learn it on my own.
That's cool.
But he also would always stop that skidder when something dangerous could happen. And he'd say, son, when you get to that big red fur on the backside of that deck, don't completely cut it, just ring it.
Yep.
Because it needs to hold and never, obviously just common sense stuff. He'd stop though and talk to me because he didn't want me to get hurt.
Yeah, no.
But he loved that I was working with him and kicking ass, and it proved all the local guys wrong, in my opinion, that I could do it. Because I think a lot of guys looked at me like, Bruce, what are you doing with your 13 and 14-year-old son up here?
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
honestly.
like, are you shitting me?
Mm-hmm.
But after my first year, when I was 13, almost 14, when I say year, I mean summer. The next year, all the real loggers were like, hey, kid. They'd talk to me.
They saw what you produced.
Because I worked my ass off, and I did it. And I kept up with my dad, who was producing more logs per month than probably anybody on the whole huge logging company. So after that, then everybody was just cool.
You said loggers that don't cuss. I think I just thought of one. Do you know the Schurmeisters at all?
Yeah.
I think Schurmeister, and he might listen to this. I don't think I've ever heard him swear too much. He's a good dude.
Yeah, and the reason I brought that up is my dad just had so much discipline.
That's incredible.
Yeah, he just had some. The whole point was, my dad would cuss a little bit.
Sure.
But he wasn't the F this, F that, blah, 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 blah. And I've said it to this day. He always just had that kind of discipline. But
Yeah.
this upbringing, this logging, everything I've done in life since then has not been hard.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because I was thrown into the fire of the most dangerous job on the planet when we did it all by hand. And I learned how to fall. I learned how to I can run a skidder like you wouldn't believe. I can run a machine. I mean, it was phenomenal because I learned some skills that grown man had that I end up later in life benefiting from greatly.
Yeah.
So it was meant to be. You know, my dad, or the good Lord, I believe, wanted me to log with my father to get to spend time with him
Heck yeah.
before he died.
I think it's obvious.
I mean, I spent so much time with my dad. And then my brother, as he got to 13 and 14, got to spend some time doing the same. And then Rob was only 14 when dad passed.
That's too young.
But I know we kind of got off on a thing
No,
there,
man, but like, honestly, I really enjoy your transparency and your vulnerability. Like that, you're a real man, and I love that. We gotta wrap stuff up. So I guess I'm gonna jump into like the questions I know people need to know. You got to cover synthetics that you're using currently in your camp that's going up, and your mobile hunting system.
Yeah.
If we get those boxes checked.
Roll. Let this go a few extra minutes. I'll get it done.
All right.
What do you want to check first?
We got to talk synthetics, man.
Okay.
Like you were the first person I ever heard of doing it.
Yeah. So I tested a lot of real urines, have a biology background, knew that they were going to rot. Anything protein based is going to rot in a bottle, period, unless you freeze it. Deer had really negative responses to my scrapes when I put that crap in it. So I started researching in the late 80s and found some synthetics out of Michigan and got a hold of it, and it worked. I was like, wow, this stuff doesn't rot. Smells right all the time. Started applying it to the licking branches and the scrapes. Now, everybody needs to know this. Before I had scents, I would take a little garden shovel, a Ziploc. I would snip pieces of a licking branch off of a hot used community scrape, and I would scrape fresh piss and urine off the top layer of the dirt, put it in a Ziploc, transfer it 5 miles away, and kill big bucks. I was doing that before synthetics.
My reaction is that because, like, dude, you are a G. That is so cool.
And that's that just made common sense to me to move them.
That's pro.
To add more deer 2 drainages over to a big scrape. And I was doing that before I had the luxury of a synthetic that worked. And if they ever outlawed it all, I'll go back to that.
Yeah, right.
I will go back to that if they ever outlaw all of it, which synthetics are great because they don't have any cervid deer urine in them that can be dangerous to deer.
Absolutely.
So anyway, I've always used the buck fever synthetics. Me being a very curious, science-minded type guy, I have come up with my own mixes with other entities in it that I'll never divulge to anybody but my son Ty, that to me trumps everything.
So you're my connect. You're my new drug dealer.
There you go. And it's
you take Venmo?
Hey, and I will, yes. And I will say this. I got guys all over North America that get stuff from me. But my point is, it's all synthetic. Every derivative I use is synthetic on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I just absolutely love the Buck Fever Synthetics line because the foundation is great. But I'm one of those guys that's never satisfied. I modify almost everything I do.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's a mod to me, make it better.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's the synthetics. Since the late 80s, early 90s, I've been killing big whitetails in Idaho over synthetic scrapes. That 2003 buck ended up being, when he finally got scored, number 2 in the state of Idaho all time, and I never entered him. I just wanted to know.
Yep.
And I've always said this, and I want to say this till the day I die. If I ever kill a state record, it'll be the only whitetail I ever enter, if he's number 1. Other than that, I just have it for myself. But I do have the official paperwork.
That's legit.
Yeah.
Oh, man. What is it going to take to go number 1 at the moment?
I think my buck missed it by a couple inches.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the typical record's 71 or 2 for archery. And I think the non-typical record for archery in Idaho is 90-something. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, for
So
archery. I'm talking archery only.
Yeah, man, that's all I care about. So evolving your systems, your synthetics.
Yep.
When did you first start doing these whitetail, like boot camps or whatever you want to call them?
I just, being a teacher, 32 years now, guys, going on being a teacher. I got 1 more year left, and then I'm just going to hunt my life away behind the priorities of my wife and my kids. But that being said, 32 years of being a teacher, the boot camp derived from me being a teacher. I thought, how can I help my people in America? And this is what's cool about the boot camp. Like the guys that signed up, I'm already full on this first. Well, no, I have 2 spots left. Shouldn't say I'm full. The guys that sign up with me, I've got Canadian guys, I got guys from back east, I got guys from the Midwest, I got guys from Texas every year, because scrape biology is scrape biology with every whitetail that walks. I've never seen it be any different anywhere I've ever hunted. And Dan, I've hunted all over.
Yeah.
Oklahoma, Iowa, Ohio, Alberta, North Dakota, Montana, Washington, Idaho. Everywhere I go, it's always the same, how they react to scrapes. So I get guys from all over the country. The East Coast guys are actually really killing it, and it's really working for Tyson in Montana. He is killing it over there. He gets a day and a half to hunt a week being a football player. A day and a half, that's it, to scout or hunt. He's killed 2 beautiful whitetails the last 2 years since he started hunting over there, all on scrapes. Anyway, all that to say, Dan, the boot camp is something I just said, you know what, D? My wife's name is D, everybody. I said, I need to start giving back. You know, what if I'm like my father and end up being gone and I never gave back?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what if something happens to me? I got to give back. So my boot camps come from the heart. I give back. Anybody that's willing to pay my fee, which I think is very reasonable for what I can share with them. It's a 1-day, long day camp.
Mm-hmm.
I tell them everything. Anything they ask me, straightforward. I mean, the only thing, I tell them everything but my recipe.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to give that away. But yeah.
But that's it. I teach them everything that I have learned from whitetails that works for me. I never come across, and I don't want to. There's lots of ways to skin a cat. There is. But this has been very, very successful for me with hunting scrapes. But I get into everything. I get into every aspect you could ever think of when it comes to hunting a whitetail with a bow and arrow out of either a saddle, a tree stand, or even a ground blind. And then the guys that rifle hunt, oh, they really kill it because they don't have to sit as close.
Yeah.
And my rifle hunter guys are killing their biggest bucks ever consistently every year.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, holy shit, Troy, this is deadly. And I have the text, the pictures, all of it to show it.
Yep.
I keep it to myself. It lets me know that they learned something.
Mm-hmm.
The methods, the tactics, the way that I go about my year-round pursuit of these deer, the guys are employing these methods and strategies and even the tactics, and they're doing great.
Mm.
And I've got one guy that's coming back for 6 years in a row.
Well, there's always, I mean, it's just, I've had guys come to camps multiple years in a row. It makes sense to me. And also, this is a shameless plug for your camp. The guys that you show up to this camp with that you don't know, there are some relationships, some connections that you will make that will, like, you might find your future whitetail hunting partner for the rest of your life at one of these. You find these like-minded people, and it just, I know what my camps have produced. It's produced hunting partners and friendships, and it's really a community.
Yeah, it's, to me, it's bigger than hunting and killing deer. It's about being a good human. I want to share and give what I can back so that people can be successful. But I really enjoy the most is the relationships I build with these men that are my friends now.
Yeah.
These dudes are my friends.
That's cool.
And that, to me, is God's work. Like, I think we need to do more than just what we want to do in life. Like, I think we need to live for greater purposes other than just what we love and what we want to be great at. It's so important to do God's work while we're here, because my dad always did. He always did God's work first. Wasn't here very long. I never forget that. So it's like my way of giving back and living God's will. And I get to use it through a platform that I love and am passionate about.
Yeah. Well said. That'd be a good place to end, but I gotta look at that tree stand, dude.
Yeah.
Why don't you bust that out for a second? So you're a mobile guy.
Yeah, both.
And fixed,
yeah,
right?
Both.
Permanent.
I like, you take like a nickel back that plays football. He's got to be able to cover and tackle. Strong safety like my son. You got to be able to cover and tackle. I don't like to be one-dimensional. So I do whatever it takes. My mobile setup here, is this on the film?
Yeah, hey, Riley.
Let me just pick it up. Just let me set it here.
oh,
How's
yeah,
that? How's that, Dan?
I can see it. Can you?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
So,
no, we're good.
So guys, in a nutshell, to make this quick, I know Dan's wanting to get me out of here. We've been going a long time. This mobile setup, I work for Lone Wolf Custom Gear, Whitetail Addictions, Andre DeQuisto, Lone Wolf. It's been around 40 years.
Wow.
Best tree stands ever made for whitetail hunters in the history of our country. All you got to do is dig deep into the research. No sound, super quiet. We've got stands that are cast, that are bigger, that are great for permanent, that are super quiet and don't make any noise. I've been running lone wolf since the 90s. And the reason I did it, Dan, is our mountain bucks can't hear a creek. If they hear Steel Creek, they're gone, meaning make a noise when it's cold.
I got you.
So I went to these aluminum stands. Lone Wolf has morphed into Lone Wolf Custom Gear with their mobiles. So I either run a permanent fixed Lone Wolf stand, or when I need to get mobile, when I go out of state, when I got to move around, I run this set. This is a 0.5 stand by itself, all by itself. Bears weigh 7 pounds. These sticks, I got 4 sticks here with 1 aider. Here's the aider. I pull this apart. I put it on a tree. I'm in a tree in 5 minutes. And I'm in a stand that I can sit in all day. And it weighs...
There's 4 sticks there,
There's
man?
4 sticks. Look at the profile.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
See how they stack and they
Gotcha.
integrate. It's phenomenal silent touch surface on this aluminum.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard and strong, super lightweight. Throw it over my back. You can see the shoulder straps.
Mm-hmm.
And this little pouch has my straps for my sticks
Yep.
to put them on the tree. I can be in a tree anywhere in North Idaho, Eastern Washington, Montana, Alberta, Ohio, Illinois, Oklahoma, doesn't matter, in 5 minutes. And I'm hunting easily all day out of this if I need to. And it weighs nothing. Tear it down, leave, hunt a different spot the next day if I need to. So
you're going to be full-time with these guys when you retire?
yeah, and I work for Andre now, but as soon as I'm done with I call it my day job, my teaching job, my, do something for the world job, God's work. As soon as I'm done with that work, then yes, I'm just full-time, even more immersed into Lone Wolf. Yes,
what do you think
Lone
you're
Wolf
going
Custom
to,
Gear.
what do you think your main objective with that company is going to be going forward?
Well, I think it is what it is now. I work deep with the sponsors, get the sponsors, acquire sponsors, and then social media.
How big is your team?
30 people, 30 of the best whitetail hunters on the planet.
Wow.
Dudes with, most of us guys have 20, 30, 40 years of experience killing the top end bucks of our areas for decades.
Mm-hmm. Now,
Great people too.
So the owner's name, what's his name again?
Andre DeQuisto.
So Andre, I've seen him on, where did I see him? I saw him on, I think on a Vortex Optics type podcast or something recently.
Yeah.
Is he like a real gym rat guy?
That's Cody, his son.
Cody.
So
okay.
glad you brought this up.
Okay, so Cody's the son.
So Cody.
That's who I've seen on a podcast.
Cody, I needed to bring this up.
Okay.
I say Andre all the time because I kind of work with Andre mostly, but Cody, he and Andre are partners with Lone Wolf Custom Gear.
Uh-huh.
And Cody's an animal. Yeah, he's
jacked.
You two would have fun in the gym together. Yeah. And Cody is, Cody's, the whole family has treated me like family. And I work for those guys.
Where are they based out of, Troy?
They're in Iowa now. They originated in Wisconsin.
Oh, cool.
And it's funny how that happened. I'll make it quick. Whitetail people they kind of found me and I found them years ago.
That's laws of attraction.
You know how it works.
Yeah.
You know how it works.
So you got the whole squad sponsored by Hoyt.
So we're Hoyt Bows, Osseo camo, phenomenal whitetail bow hunting camo.
Okay.
Quietest stuff I've ever ran in my life, and it made me put my Sitka away for cold.
Oh, damn.
Which is hard to do.
Yeah.
And I had nothing affiliated with Sitka, but I ran Sitka because it worked. But this Osseo that we set up and put together, I didn't believe it at first. I didn't think it could do it, but it did it. It's quieter and just as warmer. So it's perfect for me being a whitetail hunter. So Osseo, Hoyt, Lone Wolf Custom Gear, and then we're Vortex, Stealth Cam just came on board. We just have a really great group of sponsors that we believe their products are the best.
Did you guys get a chance to look at the Vortex's kind of like razor line for whitetail?
That's what we're all running.
Isn't that incredible?
We're running it.
Yeah.
We ran it all. We ran all the razor, everything razor.
Mm-hmm.
All of our top guys on our team are running it, and everything razor, even our mid-tier guys on our team that are working their way up, they all got razors in their hands.
Oh, that's cool. Vortex is a great company, great people.
Yes.
Finally. So when I was hunting Montana this year.
I saw those videos.
Okay, I want to go over so I do think I had 160 in front of me.
I seen him. Yeah, he's a big deer.
And then maybe just like a 140.
Were you hunting public or private?
I was on public.
Okay, good.
Okay,
because that's what I was hoping.
Yeah,
meaning I can relate to that really well.
Right.
Yeah.
Now I was with a friend, and I don't want to give away his spot, but he told me, you know, hey, 120s, 130s. And I was like, yeah, dude, whatever. Like, I'm here for it. Like, it was my first go with saddle hunting. And I'll be honest, like, I didn't know the area. I'd never got to scout it. So I'm learning on the fly. I only have a few days.
Right.
And I burn a lot of my family time up going elk hunting. So I don't get to whitetail as much as I'd like to. And that's cool. Point being is I found those bucks by getting down in the dark and not walking towards the truck, but walking the 180 degrees away from the truck with the brightest headlamp. And Troy, I'm just trying to find the sign.
Right.
And I kept doing that. And so I'd get back to my truck at about 11:30 p.m. after hiking 3-4 hours.
Right.
And I didn't mind bumping deer at night. It was mid-rut, middle of September or middle of November in Montana, public land.
You're trying to find where you need to be the next day.
Exactly.
Right.
That was it.
Right.
And so, and I had climbing sticks that were pretty shitty at the time. And so, I needed as much time as possible to find good. Anyway, that's how I found those bucks. I could never get them. Like, both bucks were running scrape lines.
Yep.
To your point.
Running scrapes. Yep.
And
what time of year was it?
Like literally November 15th.
Oh yeah. Money.
Like
money.
Smack dab.
Yeah, they're
and,
checking.
And there was some pressure in that area. There was some other stands I'd seen at night walking through there and stuff.
That's rifle too. That can be rifle hunted.
It was rifle too.
Yep.
Although, yeah, it was rifle too. I'll say that.
Yep.
It was a weapon restricted area. I didn't have to wear hunter orange.
Okay.
I don't want to give away the entire area.
That's
but
cool.
like,
I got you.
But you know, I'll just shoot you straight.
Yeah,
so that's why I wasn't having to wear hunter orange. But what do you think about that? Like, if you're in a new area and it is peak rut, and you do, I'm all or none. So all day sits, but instead of getting, down and heading back to the truck, have you done that? Just keep your search going. If you're like mobile hunting, like what's some best practices for that on the fly type mobile hunting?
So you're talking about during daylight.
Yeah. So like I sat all day.
Right.
I didn't move. And then when it got dark, I didn't like my set. So I started
You
scouting
looked
at night.
So you scouted at night. I probably, and I scout at night sometimes if I have to. That's my last resort. If I have snow, I don't waste my time if I don't have snow.
I didn't have snow.
If you got snow to tell you everything, how big the bucks are using you close because of the tracks.
Yeah.
What I do, and I've been successful with, I did it in Alberta this year, and I was holding out. When Alberta this year I knew was entry level for me to learn the country.
Yep.
And I was only going to shoot a freaking tank.
Yep.
I had one picked out. Never did kill him, but I learned so much, and this is why, and I'm going to answer your question. I would hunt till about 10 or 11. And then if I felt like stuff was slowing down midday, because it was kind of warm. Now, I was in Alberta a little earlier than you. If it would have been middle of November,
yeah,
might be a little different. I might go find what I need to find and just sit on it.
Yep.
But I know what I'm looking for, too. But back to what I like to do is if I don't have something pinned down with a whitetail, I go mobile. I get out, that goes on my back.
Yep.
Or if my spot's pretty decent for the evening and I think I'm going to get traffic in daylight, I just go. And I go start breaking down ground all day. And if I need to either have this on my back or if I need to circle back and get to a new spot, I get it done and then I set for the evening.
Gotcha.
And I've done that in multiple states. You got to get on the right now hottest spots and sign during the rut. You have to, and it's always going to center around doe family groups and big scrapes, because that's where everything goes to communicate and let the bucks know it's time.
Yeah.
So that's what I don't think you did anything wrong. You might have seen things a little better in the daylight though. Like
right.
Like say midday. Now let me ask you this: did you see much midday movement? Because sometimes that's a good time in a pressured area.
I'm trying to think. Yeah.
Did you see any good deer moving in midday?
Yeah, I did. I definitely did.
And that's during that November 15th time where you're rolling the dice a little.
Yeah.
Because
honestly,
they're on their feet.
It was tough. Like could not find, like it wasn't true mountains. So like pretty flat. I had to have my head on a swivel because I didn't really know the area, but like there were deer coming and moving from every direction.
Were you at the base of mountains?
Yes.
And then did you have any ag beyond you anywhere?
Yeah, there wasn't ag too far away.
So you had destination food.
Yeah.
And and so I would have went right into that destination food as close as I could legally get to it.
Yeah.
And then I would have worked my way back towards bedding, and I'd have set up where either I found the type of scrape I need to find, meaning it shows me that's been there for decades.
I did that. Yep.
And you should have good action there, or I'd build one.
Yeah.
Or I would build one and I'd I trap whitetails. I put scent out. I cast it from 20, 30 feet up through the wind to get them to come to me. So my deer hunt me.
Yep.
And I killed a 186 in Oklahoma doing that.
Yep.
Because I put scent in a scrape in October at his face. He was there within 2 hours. And everybody wanted me to hunt him up on the corn feeder, and I didn't want to. I moved at him. I put a big scrape in. He literally, scrape was put in 2 hours before I killed him. He walked right to it. I used scent and whitetail biology and the wind. I set off just to the edge of the wind. I was freaking cutting it close.
Man.
His nose missed my scent stream by 12, 15 yards, and I killed him at 12 yards. But I play that game.
Yeah.
It's surgical. And it makes sense why I was doing it, because I knew where he was bedding based on the intel we had on him to where he was headed to feed further beyond me.
Yep.
So I cut the distance, got close to his bedding, used scent to attract him to me in the daylight, and got him killed well before dark, like literally 2 hours after I got in the stand at midday. I killed him like at 3 or 4 in the afternoon.
Have you hunted Kansas yet?
No, and it's a place I always want.
What's wrong with you, man?
Well, I want to hunt Kansas. My Pottinger family actually settled Idaho from Kansas. So
Really?
my descendants are all from Kansas. I think
See?
that's why I like whitetails.
It's in your blood, man.
It's in my blood.
Guys, this is my friend Troy Pottinger. He is a whitetail legend. Do you have any website, or how do people sign up for your camp? Do they have to message you on?
Yeah, just if you guys want to, if anybody wants to talk to me about whitetails, MTN_man, Mountain Man 33. I'm a mountain whitetail hunter. That's a nickname guys gave me 20 years ago, and it's always kind of stuck.
Is that your football number?
And I was 33 in football.
Yeah, dog.
And that's also the age Jesus Christ was when he died
Okay.
on the cross.
Yeah.
So I've always loved 33.
Yep.
And with that being said, Mountain Man 33 or Mountain_man 33 on Instagram. I'll talk to anybody that gets a hold of me. I'll help you. Facebook, and then Whitetail Addictions is who I film for, work for, and then Lone Wolf and Lone Wolf Custom Gear.
Thank you for taking the time
Yeah.
to talk about all the cool stuff.
Well,
I enjoyed this conversation.
Well,
This is why I will podcast. Sometimes I want to quit, Troy, but when guys will come over in person and I can have a real life talk,
yeah.
that was the best, man.
Well, I just want everybody to know my old man was a good dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a good dude.
Awesome, guys. Check out Troy. Reach out to him if you need to. Separations in the preparation. We'll catch you on the next one.